Yeah, yeah, look. Hey man, you know though, man, you know what it is. That right. Yeah. Tripping about music again too. Tight it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. I was feeling suicidal, looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible. Yeah, yeah. But you didn't want to know that, cause all my pictures tell you that I'm good. That's a Kodak moment, yeah. But my real ones got me. I would never fold out, that's with the origami. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Living, that's the logo. I can tell you I won't quit, but you already know though, man. You know though, man. You know though, man. You know what it is. I'm the only one bringing championship to the crib. Everybody else, you know, they trying to leave out the city, but I move back so I can take it over like Diddy. Building empires take time, that's why I'm patient for this. This might not make radio, cause there ain't no station for this. Green up make some people change up on you out of the blue. Damn, I thought you was my dog, I did not have a clue. Look, I know what these people want, so I just give them what they need. And looking at it from your eyes, it must be devastating. But I got so much work to do, and I ain't got no time for you. And looking at my future goals, and it was so amazing, amen. Yeah. And they gon' hate this one. Man, it took me like I must have finally make this one. I'm moving on, cause victory is mine, my son. It's Type T and High Ride, Bad Boys, Volume 1. What's up? Yeah. I was feeling suicidal, looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible. Yeah, yeah. But you didn't want to know that, cause all my pictures tell you that I'm good. That's a Kodak moment, yeah. But my real ones got me. I would never fold out, it's with the origami. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Living, that's the logo. I can tell you I won't quit, but you already know though. Look, I'm the greatest, it ain't up for discussion. If we talking them temptation, boy, then I'm David Ruffin. Man, we did it on our own, nobody gave us nothing. And if your grind don't match your rhyme, then the deuces I'm chucking for real. Look, and ain't nobody does it like I did it. Point the biggest skeptic out, even he gotta admit it. Nothing you say can bother me, cause I'm my biggest critic. 2020's the vision, and I see it very, very look. Man, I'm murder beast, homicide rules I do not abide. With the Slippy J, I was raised different. And I got plenty problem 99, but they don't revolve around you. Why me do it? I don't need permission. And they gon' hate this one. Man, it took me like 9 months to finally make this one. I'm moving on, cause victory is mine, my son. It's Type T and High Ride, Bad Boys, Volume 1. What's up? I was feeling suicidal, looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible. Yeah, yeah. But you didn't want to know that, cause all my pictures tell you that I'm good. That's a Kodak moment, yeah. But my real ones got me. I would never fold out, it's with the origami. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Living, that's the logo. I can tell you I won't quit, but you already know the look. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey man, you know though, man, you know what it is. That right. Yeah. Tripping about music again too. Tight it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. I was feeling suicidal, looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible. Yeah, yeah. But you didn't want to know that, cause all my pictures tell you that I'm good. That's a Kodak moment, yeah. But my real ones got me. I would never fold out, it's with the origami. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Living, that's the logo. I can tell you I won't quit, but you already know though, man. You know though, man. You know though, man. You know what it is. I'm the only one bringing championship to the crib. Everybody else, you know, they trying to leave out the city, but I move back so I can take it over like Diddy. Building empires take time, that's why I'm patient for this. This might not make radio, cause there ain't no station for this. Green up make some people change up on you out of the blue. Damn, I thought you was my dog, I did not have a clue. Look, I know what these people want, so I just give them what they need. And looking at it from your eyes, it must be devastating. But I got so much work to do, and I ain't got no time for you. And looking at my future goals, and it was so amazing, amen. Yeah. And they gon' hate this one. Man, it took me like 9 months to finally make this one. I'm moving on, cause victory is mine, my son. It's Type T and High Ride, Bad Boys, Volume 1. What's up? Yeah. I was feeling suicidal, looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible. Yeah, yeah. But you didn't want to know that, cause all my pictures tell you that I'm good. That's a Kodak moment, yeah. But my real ones got me.
What's up, good people? Peace and love. This is your homie, Pastor Earle. I am the senior pastor of Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm glad to be sharing this time with you with what we call Ask the Black Preacher. Let me set some of the house rules, and then we can get into some wonderful dialogue and discussion and conversation. I was inspired to do Ask the Black Preacher by my dear friend, brother, and colleague, the Reverend Dr. Andre E. Johnson, who is the senior pastor of Gifts of Life Ministries in the Raleigh-Frazier area in Memphis, and he is also the associate professor at University of Memphis in the communications department. And so I'm grateful to him because he used to do this thing at G Life called Ask the Pastor, where about once a month he would get with his congregation and just have a free-for-all in terms of conversation with them. I wanted to do something similar, but after some conversation and some discussion and brainstorming, we actually used to take Ask the Black Preacher to different venues around the city of Memphis or the greater Memphis area. And so as we reloaded and relaunched Ask the Black Preacher, we've been coming to everybody live on the Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church Facebook page, and we would ask that everybody please do submit and support Abyssinian Baptist Church. So if you want to make a financial donation, please do. You can use paypal.me/4ABC. I'll put that in the comment section. But let me already say some hays as I prepare to launch into some conversation. First, I want to offer some reflections, and then I'll answer some questions. I already have one in the queue for one of the members of Abyssinians that I'll share with you all. I am a black preacher, but I'm not the only black preacher. Black preachers are not monolithic, so I don't claim to speak for all black preachers, but I do speak as a black preacher, one that is unapologetically committed to social justice and black liberation. So again, please do support Abyssinian and make sure you're supporting all your people where you are. I want to say hey to Sister Pearl Walker and Sister Margaret Cook and Brother Chris Randall. And I see Loretta Cotton Thomas on. I've seen so many of you other ones. Of course, my wife is on, who is the production assistant to Ask the Black Preacher. So she monitoring this too. So good to see her. And all of you. Look, let me start, Sister Margaret Cook submitted a question that I want to walk into. Her question was about how people, now she assigned this in her question, about how people who are part of the Church of God in Christ denomination have been prescribing COVID-19 as a plague from God. Let me first say, as I try to dive into that reflection, that I am thinking about, praying for, and trying to work in response to what has happened with not just the pandemic. You're welcome, Sister Margaret, no problem. But not just with the pandemic, and insofar as medical resources and economic resources are concerned, but also how it relates to our understanding of theology. So let me first talk some. Hey, Dr. Suina. Hey, Cardell. Let me first talk some about the economic and medical resources. Not much has changed since we gathered last week, when so many people were thinking about and working towards trying to get adequate medical resources to communities of color. Hey, Brother Darius. Hey, y'all do me a favor too. Please share this. I'm sorry, I should have asked that at the beginning. Please share this so we can dialogue and discuss with as many people as possible. But last week, we were really talking about the disparities, how COVID-19 is impacting black people disproportionately, how the deaths seem to be disproportionately higher in black communities or in places where black people are catching the virus, and how oftentimes, thank y'all for sharing it too, I deeply appreciate it, but how so often we don't respond with the proper medical and economic resources. Obviously that has not changed. The conversation now has shifted to, hey, Michael Stewart, the conversation now has shifted to whether or not we're going to open the economy back up. I find that peculiar and ironic, because we know that we still don't have an adequate grasp on this pandemic. We know that in most cases, in most areas in the country, cases are increasing. Although we talk about the curve flattening, it is still flattened where it has flattened at a relatively high rate. And in very few places in the country can we see a decline in infections, which means we are still at risk for spreading this deadly virus. Nevertheless, hey, Brother Clifford, because, hey, Brother Edward, because I think a few things. One is the commander-in-chief, y'all's president, hey, Pastor Paris, y'all's president, hey, Sister Patricia, is so adamant about changing the narrative away from his incompetence, his ineptitude, his insensitivity, his narcissism, his arrogance, and you fill in the blank, that, hey, Jamal, he wants to try to find a way for us to change the narrative. And so one way you could do that is to get people to stop talking about the medical crisis and talk about the economic impact, because we all know that people are being impacted in terms of their employment, the access to capital, not to mention food and safety, so on and so forth. Laretha, stop laughing at me. Hey, Brother Kyle. Hey, Reverend Harper. So he wants to shift the narrative. Margaret, I'm coming to your question in a second, so don't think I done diverted. Hey, Pearl, again. So he wants to divert the narrative. So now we're talking about what it means to reopen the economy, which is to say, allow businesses to remain open or to reopen so that patrons, people who give money to the businesses, will go back and patronize the business, thereby re-stimulating the economy. Okay? Now, it's a baseline for this. It's a simple thing. Outside of just the idea of changing the narrative, it communicates our deep commitment to profits over people. Profits. Profits over people. Hey, Sister Karen, Mama Peaches. So this is what you're seeing happening, and the way that they have done it subversively or underneath the radar or in a subtle way with a significant impact. Hey, Sister Christine. The way that they, and y'all please share this, please, again. The way that they have done this with a subversive, subtle approach, but deep impact, is to pass the responsibility off to the next person in line. So now, hey, Pastor Hadari, glad you joined. I thought you were talking about I'm about to have a sidebar conversation. Just say, Pastor Hadari, I thought you were talking about live about this later on. I didn't know you were talking about today. So if you were, then please accept my apology. But either way, I do want to participate when you set it up. Okay, hey, Christina. So they passed the buck from the president, who says now it's on the governors. The governors say, hey, we basically going to open back up the economy, but not everywhere. And especially in states like Georgia and Tennessee and in other places, we see them basically saying it's left up to the people who are either in the county government or in the city government. Hey, Sister Amber. So this is dangerous. And it is a testament to how deep anti-black sentiment runs throughout our country. Because you cannot pay me to believe that if a pandemic was disproportionately impacting the rich and the wealthy, that everybody would say let's let's go on with, hey, Brian, and hey, Shawana, let's go back to business as usual. So in all likelihood, what is going to happen, I pray that I'm wrong, is that they will pick and choose the places that they feel can attract the most money for predominantly white businesses. Shut up, Amber. Talking about my green screen looks like a suburban family home. Me and Denise live in the heart of Whitehaven, okay? And that's just a green screen. Where you see all this. Okay, anyway. But yes, watch the way that the dollars go. As they always say, follow the money. And so, my hunch is most of the governors, hey, Sister Oni Johns, most of the governors who have adhered to this notion of reopening the economy are governors who more than likely are supported by big business. So notice, after the Small Business Association funds ran out and even big businesses were getting them, that's when, it's not until after the funds ran out. And I think some of the larger corporations started to realize they weren't going to be able to manipulate the system as much as they wanted to. Now they want to get all of their money. And so, hey, let's reopen the economy. Even in the city of Memphis, and I just read this today and I'm somewhat disturbed by it. let me first say I applaud Mayor Strickland for at least trying to buy some time, if you will, and say, hush, Amber. Hey, it's Sister Sherry. No, Laretha, I'm not going with Cuomo for president. But that's another conversation. No shade to him. I think he's doing a great job governing in New York. Hey, Vance, and hey, Deanna. I sure do hope y'all would submit y'all questions. I'm coming to Margaret's question in a second. I just wanted to get this prologue out first and foremost. So, I applaud Mayor Strickland for buying time, and I think Dr. Fruitrail, what's up? That's exactly what he's doing. He's buying time because although the governor says open it back up, I think the last day of the month or May 1st, Strickland bought a couple of days saying we'll do it May 5th. But they also released something talking about some of the places that are going to be reopened. Hey, Ramona. Hey, Derek. Talking about golf courses being reopened. So who do you think frequents golf courses? See, some of this is simply about how to maintain a white, lucrative lifestyle and not be too inconvenienced. So who bears the burden and the brunt of the inconvenience? Poor black folks. Folks who don't have the luxury of deciding whether or not they're going to go to work. Folks who either have to decide whether they're going to go to work and risk getting infected or stay at home and risk getting evicted. Notice nobody, what up, Brother Arya? Hey, I want to call you Semi Ray. Suleiman. Hey, Pastor Ingram. Notice, y'all, that the people who have to sacrifice the most are the people who usually are able to get the lowest return on their sacrificial investment. So now you got people who, notice nobody talked about really or substantially. Hey, Sister Stacy. Notice nobody substantially talked about rent freezes or mortgage freezes. So here's the danger. The danger is simply this. While we're talking about eviction freezes and some of these other measures, what's going to more than likely happen? Hey, Dr. Jawanza, Eric Clark. Hey, Brother Joshua Coleman. What's likely going to happen is the bills are going to pile up. So even if they won't cut your lights off, they're not freezing the fee. So you just going to keep on adding the fees when everything, quote unquote, opens back up. Then they're going to say, oh, well, the economy has opened back up, so it's time for y'all to pay y'all money back. But you done spent the last 2 months trying to just make ends meet when you really couldn't. I got you, Sherry. Thanks for that question. When you really couldn't work like you needed to work or do what you needed to do. And so the money was still adding up, but your money wasn't coming in. And trust me, y'all know that $1,200 for those who get it actually really is not going to amount to much, because if your rent was $1,000 a month, and you ain't been able to really work since the middle of March. So now your rent is twice as much as it would have been, but you got half as much as money as you would have had. And that $1,200 didn't help. You barely going to be able to pay 1 month rent on it. Okay. So look, it's ridiculous the way that this is happening. So let me transition to answer Margaret's question, because there's a theology behind how this happens, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so if you think about people talking about when the infection or when the virus was really a pandemic or it didn't matter, and then this notion that too many people of faith tried to offer up, hey Sakita, hey Jonathan, they tried to offer up this idea that, if it's God's will, then then you'll catch it. That's ridiculous. I also want to say it's ridiculous to say that this is somehow God's plague. That is a ridiculous reading of the Exodus narrative in the Old Testament, and it is dangerous insofar as it describes God as somebody who is so insensitive and bloodthirsty that God would kill any and everybody indiscriminately just to prove a point. So if somehow somebody believes that this is quote unquote getting us back to God, that's ridiculous. Look, the United States of America has never been that close to God. Okay, the country is founded on slavery, genocide, economic exploitation. That doesn't mean that the entirety of the country doesn't have any beauty or value or ethic to it, or but let's be honest, this whole notion that it's actually called, I was reading, for those who have not, especially for the preachers, if you haven't seen or gotten my pastor, Dr. Frank Thomas's latest book, Surviving the Dangerous Sermon, he actually starts talking about these different approaches to the scriptures and the gospel and stuff like that. And he actually has the section on these working gospels within certain contexts. And one is American exceptionalism. This notion that America is somehow exceptional, closer to God than the rest of the countries, all this other stuff. That's white as hell. And we just need to start disrupting this stuff. And it's a shame when black churches, black faith leaders, black denominations start espousing this stuff. It's dangerous and it's ridiculous because it blames God for human activity that is unjust, unethical, insensitive, and evil. Okay? It blames God. No, God did not cause this pandemic. God created human beings with free will, which allows human beings to make conscious mistakes and sometimes unconscious mistakes. And we have to deal with the brunt and the reality of these human frailties, fallibilities, and faults. But the beauty for me is, the way I understand God, is that God is yet at work in it. So everything isn't God ordained, but it is God allowed. So there are certain things that God ordained, God willed, God destined, like for everybody to be free. God didn't ordain slavery. God doesn't ordain the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration. God is not causing these quote unquote plagues. Okay? And it's just bad theology. And this is one of the things that's probably frustrating me the most, is so much bad theology. What up, Marcus? There's so much bad theology out there. Tell him, Pastor Ross, it's bad theology out here. And people are using it to justify some of the ignorance that some of us have to deal with and experience. Okay? So Margaret, I don't know exactly how to handle or respond to people who make that claim, other than to say, the God that I pray to, the God that I worship, the God that I believe in, ain't that type of God. Hey, Frank, ain't that type of God. My God ain't going to send, because if God's going to send the plague, ain't God smart enough to send it to the people who have been the most evil? Look, it's people who we could definitely, I think I read one story. It was 6 people in the family. 3 of them done caught COVID and died. You mean tell me that's God's will? Hell no, I'm sick of this stuff. No, stop it. And full stop. And also, while I'm at it, I'm finna transition and shift gears just a little bit, because there's something else I want to touch on now too. For all of those who use those examples and manifestation of the black church or the churches or human beings' bad theology as justification for dismissing faith institutions altogether, you're really being used as a tool of exploitation. Lean in. I'm going somewhere. See, it's ridiculous to discount and discredit all of the wonderful things an institution like the black church has done in this country. Do you know that over 200 slave revolts in the country were started in black churches? Now, you mean to tell me you're going to throw all of that away because somebody had bad theology about where the COVID-19 virus came from, because they don't want to study and do science or do history or anything like that? They don't know anything about the Wuhan lab in China, right? They don't know anything about bats and the corona. They don't know anything about the swine flu or H1N1 virus and stuff in the past. And they don't know that if we had a more competent administrator in the White House and a more competent executive in the House office in the land, in all likelihood, we wouldn't even be dealing with this stuff. Okay? Do not disrespect and disregard the black. It's been too much. And it's dangerous because right now, black churches and small black businesses are catching the burden the most of the economic impact. But the only 2 autonomous institutions that we have in the black community, relatively autonomous, are the black church and the black barbershop and beauty shops. So look, don't allow yourself to be hoodwinked or bamboozled, and don't be a tool for the exploitation of your own people. The best thing to do with the black church is help us and hold us to the standard by which you believe we should be engaging. The standard by which you think the black church should be involved, get your butt up and help. Because I know folk, and please try me. Check my receipts, okay? I know folk who talk crazy about the bad church all day long, but as soon as you need something, I can't see nobody typing at me now. Hey, Brooklyn. Hey, Donna. So you talk crazy. Hey, DeLeslie. Hey, Willie. I almost said the click name. What up, boy? As soon as you need something, soon as somebody need to be buried, soon as somebody need help with the light bill, right? So, and I am not saying that black churches are not guilty of impropriety. I'm not saying that the black faith community has not. I'm not saying that the black church or the black faith community has always lived up to the standard. All our institutions are fallible. All of them are frail. You still paying your taxes, fool. Now you know the government ain't right. You still paying your taxes. Hello. So look, if we want to make the most of this moment, we need to unify and organize under the banner of equity. Equity, love, and justice. Help the black church do that. Don't just spend your time trying to talk about what the black church ain't doing. If the black church ain't doing it, it's because you ain't helping the black church do it. And if you black, you part of the black church, whether you attend or not. That's what the black church was at its origin. That's why Harriet Tubman had to carry a Bible and a gun. Okay, so let me digress off of that. But hopefully, Sister Margaret, this answers your question. The best thing, I want to try to treat everybody with compassion and deference and love. So even when they have bad theology, I try to call it out in ways that challenge them to do and be better. But I also try to understand where they may have gotten it from. And this stuff has been prevalent in our community and our culture for far too long. Laretha, I thought you had a question, or Sherry, you had a question, and I can't seem to find it. So if you could please be so kind as to resubmit it. But again, y'all, in the middle of this crisis, in this pandemic, we have to watch out for each other, because ain't nobody else coming to help us or coming to save us. Be very clear. That's not the case. Ain't nobody doing that. And so while I'm waiting on other questions, y'all please do submit your questions. I'm going to try to catch them. You're right, Dr. Jeffrey Fruit Trail. War is upon us, and the inevitable conflict draws ever so near. I would say the conflict has always been right here in front of our face. Okay, I'm not saying it's drawing near. You're welcome, Margaret. And the war has been here since our ancestors arrived on this continent. Derek Patterson says the forefathers of this country didn't believe in the Christian faith. They believed in what they call reason. I don't want to divorce faith from reason. It's a long-standing conversation about that. No, the founding fathers of the country were not Christians as we understand it. They were, by and large, what you would call deists. D-E-I-S-T, deists. Yeah, and so they believed in a higher power of rationality and a source of that rationality, which is why you have stuff in the Constitution like all men are created evil. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator. What up, Daniel? They are endowed by their creator. So that's a no to a higher power with certain unalienable rights. Is actually what they would call the natural rights philosophy. Hey, Brooklyn, the natural rights philosophy. So look, because I got to do this one last thing while I got a moment. To the faith leaders, I see you, Kyle. I'm gonna come to your comment in a second. To the faith leaders, I don't think it's time for us to fall victim to trying to rush back into the sanctuary too soon. As I was listening to the Bible study of Reverend Dr. Gino Gibson of Olivet Fellowship Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee, now known as the place of the outpouring of the place, and he was talking about the data today. The data does not suggest it's time for us to move back in. It just doesn't suggest that. So as hey Nakisha and hey Shell and hey Kiera, look, as difficult as it is for us to try to remain diligent and steadfast and not physically gathering in the congregation, I think that's what we need to do in order to save lives. Hey, Reverend Darren, I think that's what we need to do in order to save lives and to keep people safe. So Abyssinian will not be gathering in the sanctuary anytime soon until the coast is way clear. I don't want it on my conscience or on my heart for me to gather. And while we in there gathering, somebody mess around and catch the COVID. And then I have to do a graveside service through a screen. Nah, I don't want that on my conscience. I don't want that blood on my hand. I know preachers are going to make the decision as they see best fit for them. I understand that. But rule number one of a faithful pastor is to look out for your sheep. And I don't think we're looking out for them if we put them in harm's way. Kyle Stevenson says, we see 45 making statements as usual, revealing he has no clue about constitutional law or the separation of powers. Amen. Nothing about regarding state and federal government like I have total authority. Is a Trump autocracy likely because the similarity to World War II is scary? Also, the stages for extermination that Dr. Beverly Mitchell talks about in plantation and death camps, religion, ideology, and human dignity. Here's what I would say to that wonderful multi-textured question, Kyle. I think democracy is a project that the United States of America has never held democracy in the palm of our hand. It's always something that we've been chasing. And as Eddie Glaude and others have talked about, as what's my sister who did the 1619 project? Hannah Nicole Jones. Between Hannah Nicole Jones and the 1619 project, Eddie Glaude's Democracy in Black. Look, if it wasn't for black folk and the struggle for freedom in the United States, the country wouldn't have the semblance of democracy it has now. So autocracy is always looming. Totalitarianism is always looming. And we definitely see so many people caught up in what Dr. Thomas would call the gospel of patriotism, which is mythical and associated with American exceptionalism, that they all sacrifice human lives and even sacrifice democracy to maintain white privilege and white supremacy. So it's always out there, which means we have to be conscious, we have to be committed, we have to be engaged, we have to be courageous, we have to be creative, we have to do all we can. That's what I was talking about earlier. This ain't the time to be trying to throw the black church under the bus. This is the time to try to get the black church to live up to its highest ideals and standards. So I think that that's the only thing we have to respond to that ever-looming reality of how fragile the experiment of democracy is. I hope that answers your question, Brother Kyle. Sherry, I hope you want to know why elected officials in our underprivileged areas of Memphis are not out here making sure they understand how serious Corona is to our communities. I would say because most of our elected officials were elected by pandering to the political establishment as it stood, and we know the political establishment has never been pro-black. Type at me, somebody. The political establishment in the country, the political establishment in the states, and the political establishment in just about every city in this country has never been pro-black. In most cases, it's anti-black. Okay? So this is why you have to fight hard just to get data released to let you know how COVID-19 is impacting communities based upon race. So most of the elected officials are tone deaf. They don't live in these communities that are under the highest threat, or if they do live in them, they are still siloed and protected. For instance, if you are an elected official in just about any city in this country, you have health care. Government mandated, government appropriated health care. So one of the things we know makes black folks and poor folks so vulnerable to COVID-19 is that you need health care. Most of the people can't get tested unless you have health insurance. That's why they still struggling to get tested all over the country, because they're trying to make sure that the people who produce the test get paid, the people who administer the test get paid, the people who get the data from the testing get paid too. And I ain't messed up about them getting paid. I am messed up about the payment or the profit margin, like I said earlier, being more important than the people margin. Okay, like this ain't the time, but this is a pandemic. And if our government was structured properly, then they would help fit the bill. But we find all of this money. Somebody explain to me. Yeah, sister. I should have known that Sister Patricia Robinson was going to amen that part, because she's a healthcare provider, healthcare service provider. Hey, Pastor Danielle. Look, y'all help me. Oh man, I had a good thought. At least I thought I did. What was I talking about? The profit margin, and the people margin, right? So the profit margins are more important than the people margin. Well, I lost my train of thought. Let me try to catch another question. If it come back to me, I thought I had something good too. Hey, Ladora, speaking of, that's an Abyssinian member who is working in the, I know I said never pro-black, but it was something else. Fight the establishment, not the black church. Yes, I said that too. Hey, Sheena. Hey, Barbara. Let me just try to lean back into it. Because the reason we have this response from our elected officials is because most of them have to kiss the ring of corporations and big businesses in order to get elected. And so when it comes to a moment like this, the first thing they do is make sure that the businesses are straight. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Look at God. So how many of y'all raise your hand and make sure you share this? Matter of fact, type it in the comment section. How many of y'all were told you needed to save up 6 months of savings? That's what it meant to be financially and fiscally responsible, right? That everybody, hey, Jermaine, what's up? Everybody should save up, 6 months worth of, salary, all this other stuff. Now, you got big corporations who are making billions of dollars in profit every year. I don't see nobody typing at me. And these corporations couldn't last 2 months without begging the government for a bailout. But we don't bail the people out. People get $1,200. But we had corporations that had 5,000 plus employees over the country. Now, y'all know a small business is somebody, and this is a discrepancy if you ask me. I see you, Ramona. I'm about to read your comment in a second because I know you said something fantastic. We get $1,200. But you got corporations that got 5,000 employees. They say that the small business number is 500. That's high as far as I'm concerned. But 5,000 employees, they were getting access to small business loans to cover their salaries, to cover the salaries of their employees. Hey, Tracy, you know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. You're a small business owner. You know what I'm talking about. Right, Amber, your mother been telling you you need to save up 6 months. Look, how are folks who are being overworked and underpaid, and not only overworked and underpaid, overcharged by companies, corporations, and businesses, and underpaid? We supposed to save up 6 months of salary. Okay, thanks be unto God if you did it. Cool. Salute to you. God is kind. That ain't the way the system is structured to work. You got lucky. You are actually what they would call malfunctioning equipment. Okay, because the corporations can't do it. They couldn't last a month. They get money that small businesses need. This is the inequity. So no, Sherry, and in order to get elected, most of the time, this is the type of environment that you have to submit yourself to. You have to get the tell them, Stephanie, it's ridiculous. Hold on, Sister Natalie Woody Dunnigan. I'll take that question in just a second. I'm just tired of the hypocrisy. You got socialism for the rich and hyper-capitalism for the poor. Ramona Taylor Williams, I want y'all to follow this dear sister. She is a freedom fighter out of St. Louis by way of New Orleans and currently in Mississippi trying to do some organizing. And I appreciate her. She had an event in the town of my family's origin, Grenada, Mississippi, several months ago and had me come up and do some speaking around census stuff. Ramona says, accountable governance is essential, and it's our responsibility to hold elected officials accountable to the people and not the establishment or their cronies. We have a duty to vote and meaningfully participate in the public policy making progress. You are absolutely right. Amen. That's all I can say to that is amen. Natalie Woody Dunnigan says, would you agree the profit margin versus people margin plays the greatest role in the country? No, the greatest role in the great move to open the country. Yes, I was trying to say this earlier. I don't know if you were on at the time, Sister Natalie, and I also don't know if I actually made it clear. Mike, I see your comment and I want to read it and say something about it in a second. Hey, Maya. Hey, Dr. Irie. So it's clear to me at this point, because if you look at which governors are the first to try to reopen their states, Georgia, Tennessee, I don't know if it's North Carolina, somewhere else. Matter of fact, I seen some folk in Vegas that they talking about reopening the casinos. I think that's exhibit A, that what people are concerned about is not getting the pandemic under control, but making sure that their bottom line is still holding strong. And I think the government just passed another, is it $448 billion bill? Hey, I thought we didn't have no money. I thought every time we start talking about money for education or, money for wages and all, South Carolina, thank you, Margaret. I thought that they were asking us, who gonna pay for it? Hey, Sister Pip, who gonna pay for it? Ain't that what Texas, Florida? Yeah. Who gonna pay for it? Well, we got money now. So yes, Natalie, I think you're absolutely right. It is the profit margin being elevated above the people margin, especially if they don't readily identify with the people who are being disproportionately impacted. We ain't even getting adequate testing, but we ready to open this thing back up. And it's probably because some of them corporations call some of those governors that they got in their pockets, or the president who they have in their pocket, and say, hey, look, we gave y'all a month. Y'all ain't got it together. I'm sorry. We'll do all we can to try to protect our employees, but we need to open back up. I need you to lift that order. And what you see is, notice, especially in Tennessee, if you're in Tennessee, lean in, because you can always tell what's going to happen in Tennessee by what happens in the White House. Because the governor of Tennessee is a businessman with no political experience. Sounds like the guy in the White House. Businessman, no political experience. And ain't too good at business, by the way. I was telling Denise the other day. I said, shoot, I guess we should have expected this. This is what happened to all Trump businesses. They go underwater. Michael Stewart, who is a small business owner in South Haven, Mississippi, we applied for the PPP program, Payroll Protection Program, and didn't even hear anything back from our bank. Big businesses took all the money. Well, keep your application handy, Brother Mike. As I understand it, they're trying to roll some more resources out, and I hope that, everything gets... Look, here's what I think we need to know. The way that I said something earlier about, the way that our government is structured, it is anti-black. I mean, it's just historical, okay? It's anti-black. Whether people are doing it intentionally or unintentionally. Now, we can debate those, but clearly we have seen for centuries that the government does not tilt its will to empower and protect black folks, and black businesses are no exception. That's why this idea that the only thing we need to do to get out of this economic inequity is for everybody to become business owners. No, that's not it. So, since that's the case, we're probably not going to get anything we don't organize, agitate, and fight for. I want y'all, if you live in Memphis, to think about something. And I vented a little bit earlier this week. Hey, Nikki, and hey, Mama Hubert. Hey, Vita. Hey, Shanta. Hey, Kiera. I vented about this a little while because I remember when we would be out fighting for body cams and people were calling us crazy or saying we didn't know what we were talking about. or fighting for livable wages, fighting for a $15 an hour minimum wage, and people were calling us crazy. Now, so funny because some of the same people who people used to say weren't worth $15 an hour are the difference between them starving and surviving today. You think they worth $15 an hour now? Or when we were advocating for criminal justice reform, all this other stuff. And so what ended up happening is that pressure that we were able to put on elected officials and people who are appointed by people who are elected actually tilted their attention towards things that matter more. So now there are things that have been implemented in the city, things that Mayor Strickland did, things that Mayor Luttrell did when he was in office, things that Mayor Harris is doing now, things that city council people have proposed that would have never happened if we weren't organizing and agitating on the ground. It ain't because they just had some bright idea and they have such goodwill. Hey, Sonia, that's not how this is happening. This is happening because people are compassionate enough and courageous enough to keep organizing on the ground. If we want our fair share of these dollars, we got to organize to get it. They not giving it to us. If you want your people to be protected and get access to the equipment or the resources, the medical resources, the economic resources, hear me clearly. What up, Greg? Hear me clearly. They not giving it to you. You got to fight to get it. You got to work to get it. And the sad thing for us is we spend more time demonizing and criticizing the people who are trying to fight to help us than we do the people who are orchestrating and instituting and sustaining the inequities in public policy. So, I'm saying, tell me, Shante, am I making sense? Right? So the reason this is happening is because our political infrastructure is rooted in white supremacist capitalism. So white folks, especially white males, and people who want access to capital, means, money, the system is tilted to benefit them. If you don't fit that description, you got to organize and try to basically infiltrate the system. Okay? So the work is cut out for us. What we are seeing, what the pandemic has done, is just uncovered all of the inequities that people were lying about when they were saying how much momentum we had, or how well the economy was doing, or how well everything was doing, and how great America is again. I'm sick of it. Let me see if I got another question or some comments. The mayor in Las Vegas is trying to open the city. I did see that. Yep. Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Natalie. Did somebody else? Sonia Jackson, I'm sorry. You applied. Oh, you received some money Monday. Thanks for being a guy. If you are in the city of Memphis, I think the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance, headed by Sister Joanne Massey, they are taking applications and trying to support some of the local businesses with some grants. And I think that that's a wonderful opportunity for people to try to get some support. I don't know how much support it'll be, but it's good to try to get some. But look, if you don't hear me say anything else today, hear me say, we are only going to get what we are organizing for. We're only going to get what we are agitating for and advocating for. Ain't nobody in there got enough authority right now. Ain't nobody in there with enough authority right now. So, I got you, Amber. Even though I didn't watch that link yet, even when you sent me that, I'm gonna say something about it in just a second. I'm gonna tell you what I meant to share with you. But look, ain't nobody in there who has enough authority to make something happen, benevolent enough or loving enough to black folks to just make it happen. It reminds me of, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in office and A. Philip Randolph was organizing with the Pullman Porters and the labor movement, and he said, hey, FDR, this is the situation. Here's the data. You need to do this. You need to do that. And all of these bullet points. And FDR said to him, you right. Now go out there and make me do it. So I don't care who is in there. You can best well believe we're going to have to make them do it. Amber Sherman, who was a member of Abyssinian, reached out to me earlier this week. I think it was earlier this week, right, Amber? And asked me if I was familiar with a poet / author, if I'm not mistaken, named Jackie Hill Perry. who I think did a YouTube video that talks some about sex and sexuality and spirituality and religion and sin. What I would recommend, here's a book that blessed me when I was in seminary. Hey, Pastor Tracy. And I think it is fantastic. And I recommend anybody who is interested in knowing some of the nuances about sex and sexuality and spirituality, especially as it relates to the Black church. It's a book by Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas called Sexuality in the Black Church. I know that there are more out there. I'll, conjure up some in a minute and type them. But I mean, I think that is a seminal work, because what I would say right off, Sister Amber, even having not seen Jackie Hill Perry's piece, and I promise you I'm going to go look at it so we can talk about it in detail, is that most faith traditions have been unwilling or unable to righteously talk about sex and sexuality. And I also think that the Bible is a bad place to get your sex education, because I don't think that that's what that was constructed for. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the most I'll say about that. Hey, Dominique, that's the most I'll say about that. Hey, Zipporah, that's the most I'll say about that for right now. I do owe you going back and look at the link that you sent me, so I'll go check that out and do my best to respond. Sheena Foster says, I think this is a strategy to appeal to his base of poor whites and low-income blacks to garner support for re-election. What do you think? Sheena, I think that for the last probably 20, maybe 50 years, we have been burdened by a perpetual election cycle. So people rarely govern based upon what their convictions are. Maybe the last person to govern based upon their convictions was Jimmy Carter. And that's probably why he ended up getting one term. Because people politicize everything now. And so it's about what their base wants, or, it's about what they feel, how this is going to play with the electorate, because they're in office trying to figure out how to get reelected, or trying to figure out how to pass the baton to the next in line in their party. So yeah, I think everything that he has done is read above that. I'm sorry. Did you say read above that? Okay. I'll read above it in a second. Oh, you were responding to Suleiman, or Mr. Dinkins, who is one of my former students, and was auditioning to be a praise and worship leader at Abyssinian many moons ago. He said he has made clear that this was and for those who don't know, I think he speaks from a place of authenticity, because he is someone who has wrestled with, and as I understand it, right, Simi-Ray, Suleiman has overcome the COVID-19 virus. He said it literally just 5 months ago. He posted on Facebook that people need to begin to, if at all possible, cut all expenses possible and increase the savings. The stock market showed us what was to come even before COVID-19 was on the radar. That's true. Everybody was saying that. Even this, the economy was a false economy insofar as it wasn't so many people who were working. It was that people were working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. Kavita, I see your question. I'll come to you in a second and probably close out with it. Brother Dinkins says the stock market showed us what was to come even before COVID-19 was on the radar. When the red flag warning sounded twice in 2 months, we must focus our community on wealth generation if for nothing else, to cushion the blow of this structural wealth genocide in this country. They will not teach it in school because it is not for us. Sheena, I feel like I didn't go far enough. Okay. I have family. Let me try to read yours. And Kavita, I'm going to read yours. Try to take all of them because we got about 5 minutes left. Sheena says, Doc, I have family members who were underemployed or unemployed in Louisiana and are now getting the $600 a week in federal dollars from the CARES Act. Some folks are talking about supporting Trump now because they are blinded by these 4 months of crumbs he has handed out. Yes, ma'am, which is part of why he wanted to wait until after he could sign those checks or get his name on it in order for them to go out. It is a marketing thing. It is about him getting reelected. Hey, Pastor Camila, or Dr. Camila. Brother Dinkins, I want to say it is going to be nearly impossible to build. I'm glad you said this because it gives me a chance to lean into something. Kavita, I need to read your question too, and then I'll try to wrap up. I deeply appreciate y'all engaging me in this conversation and asking these wonderful, provocative, and poignant questions. Again, don't forget to share this. Kavita asks, and this is another member of Abyssinian. My Abyssinian tribe is in here today. I love y'all so much. Miss y'all too in terms of this physical stuff. What is my opinion about the hot mic controversy about the true number of cases of the coronavirus? We don't know the true number of cases. It's not even close because we're not doing adequate testing. So that's my direct opinion, and I think most epidemiologists and medical professionals are in agreement with that. This is why you hear this big conversation about testing. But I want to try to wrap up with what Brother Dinkins is talking about as it relates to generational wealth. I don't know anybody who loves black folks who wouldn't be down for us building generational wealth. So I don't think any of us are anti-generational wealth. Said, what's up, Sands? Here's what I think we neglect. Our economy is structured in such a way that the only way black folks are going to build economic wealth is if we can get some economic justice from the political infrastructure. Because other than that, the way that we're set up, we're, what did I say earlier? Overworked, overcharged, underpaid. So we keep asking black folks to save money. I made the statement earlier, and it still rings true. We tell black folks to save money when billion-dollar corporations can't seem to save enough. But we heap that burden on black folks. Now, I'm not saying don't try your best to be fiscally responsible. I'm not saying that I endorse financial illiteracy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can get 1,000 financially literate people, and if they don't have adequate wages, but they still have to pay taxes into school systems that don't adequately educate their kids by design, a healthcare system that does not make them more healthy by design, and a government that does not represent their interests by design, you basically telling us we got to get quadruple taxed with a quarter of the money that we need to start saving. And even when, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, even when we have people who end up doing the right thing and getting people jobs and stuff like that, or becoming, moguls, if you will, most of them still cheat black folks out their wages. I'm talking about black folks. Black folks cheat black folks out their wages. Black folks go into real estate, buy up the houses in the neighborhood, and then flip them, and then overcharge the folks for the houses. Black folks do this. So we have to change that mentality, number one, amongst us, that all you got to do is play the game like they play it. Well, if you play the game like they play it, you just going to change the person who is driving the bus of injustice. You're just going to change the driver. That ain't what we want. Hey, Jahar, what we want is more equity. And you can't get that if poor black folks constantly getting taxed, but governmental services are not meeting their needs. We need to build our own stuff. With what? With what? How many Oprahs you think out there? How many billionaires you think out there? You see what, I mean, look, man, it just don't add up. I'm not saying that I don't want us to be wealthy. Obviously, I do. I want our economy to be just. I'm not saying that I don't want us to be financially literate. I'm not saying that. I do. It won't matter how financially literate can you be if you're making poverty wages? Yeah, save money. Save from what? By the time I realized being overcharged, overworked, underpaid, and the way our mentality is, you hear me, Suleiman? You hear me? By the time, the way our mentality is, we have to find a way to shift the burden off of the macro and put it into the micro because it's easier to cast blame. I'm saying this whole system is structured in inequity. And so what we need to do is do our best to organize and mobilize to make our system more equitable. Then I think government's giving less than 1% of contracts to black businesses. Come on, man. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and kin, I deeply appreciate y'all spending some time with a black man, a black preacher, talking about this stuff. And I really want to ask you now, please don't forget to support Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church. We want to continue to be that the blackest church in Memphis and Shelby County and help our people as much as possible. Y'all, let me show you. I wore this shirt today. Y'all remember the Boondocks? So I'm repping for the Boondocks in this mug today, okay? But we are gathering on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and hope that you will check us out online on this same Facebook page. But beyond that, again, if you could be so kind as to send any contributions that you can, join us this Sunday and bring somebody with you. I'm trying to build upon something that we started last week, so I'll be finishing up the sermon over the next couple of days, but need all of y'all to tune in with us. Don't forget to share this. I'll try to go back through and catch all of the comments that I possibly could. Beyond that, I'm glad y'all tuned in. Thanks for chatting with a black preacher. I'll see y'all next week.
Tripping about music and tea. Tight it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. Light it. Yeah. I was feeling suicidal. Looking for the answers, couldn't find them in the Bible.